Hello, I'm Una. Welcome to my channel. Do you ever think you spend too much money on crafting products that you don't need? I watched a super video the other day by Jennifer McGuire and she showcased some beautiful Altenew products. So I went straight online, put them in my basket and then said, "Stop, Una, you don't need these things. Try being creative with what you've got." This is what I made. The first thing I found that took my interest was this set of dies that I bought years ago in the works here in Ireland, really cheaply. I paid about €4.50, that's about $5. And when I saw the Monstera leaf, I thought, this is just what I need. And then I found this Iceland poppy, and these stems, I thought, yeah, they'll be perfect. I have this in my stash for 5 years, and I've used it a few times, but yeah, why not use it this time to make a potted plant? I cut out some leaves. I didn't use the philodendron in the end and got to work. I drew the plant pot. I often do this to create things that need to be symmetrical. Draw a half of the thing you want, and it doesn't have to be perfect because as long as it's symmetrical, it's going to look all right. So I cut this out of Desert Storm card and I cut it twice so that I could assemble my bits and pieces on the bottom layer. And then I coloured the top piece with my Spectrum Noir markers. And I took a look at my swatch cards and I decided that this brown grey would be perfect. So I started colouring. I speeded up here so that it's only a minute or so long. There's a fine tip, there's a bullet point and a chisel tip on this marker. And so I speed things up with the chisel tip. When you're colouring something like this, it's always good to leave a light highlight. And if there's something like a rim on this pot, you can just offset it a tiny bit and it'll look even more realistic. And in the end, I brought in some distressing gathered twigs to make this pot look more dimensional, and it was perfect. It was just the added touch that was needed. So like I said, I used the bottom piece to assemble my bits. Now this takes me forever, the playing around with the bits, deciding where to put things. I decided to use my scissors to cut one of the leaves, just to make it look a little bit different from the others. And bringing in distress inks again, I added some darker touches to the leaves. Next time I make this, I'll start with a lighter green, I think. Using Twisted Citron and Hero Arts Unicorn pigment ink, just pouncing it on there and darkening even more with forest moss on the leaves, and then spritzing the leaves with some Perfect Pearl water. I make it in a mini mister and I'm happy with those. And those labels are more inexpensive ones that I bought in the works, and I layered them together to cut them out so that I'd have a frame. Then using Versamark ink and white embossing, Stampendous white embossing powder, I created a sentiment for the card. I did it on Desert Storm, Nina Desert Storm card as well. Now I just show you really quickly two more examples of how I used this technique. I drew a half of a vase, and using the template, I cut it out on Nina Classic Crest Solar white cardstock. And then I used a Spectrum Noir marker to colour it. Now when I was colouring this with the Spectrum Noir marker, I did discover that it was gone very dry. So I did need to replenish my stock. I had to go out and buy some more markers. But these are essential colours and I don't mind having to replace those. It can be difficult to draw straight lines, so I bring in my T ruler to help me here. I'm creating a bottle. So I produce a template from it, and then using some repositionable tape, some temporary glue tape, I adhere it to a piece of cardstock and cut it out. Now to show that this could be turned into a say for example, a red wine bottle, I coloured it green. And you could add some labels to make it look a bit realistic, and a marker, add highlights with a marker. But this time I decided to turn it into a vase, a tall, skinny vase. I'm using a twin marker here, an inexpensive set that I bought years ago in the Netherlands. And this old Altenew set, diamond pattern set, I hadn't used those two top pieces before, and I thought, perfect. This is the day to use stuff that you haven't used before from your stash. I did have some issues with it, but the paper was inclined to tear, and I discovered I just needed to wash it with soap and water to stop that happening. I created a random pattern, and with the big stamp I created a pattern on another card base. And again, the bit that takes me forever, playing around with the bits and pieces, deciding what way I'll arrange them. And this is what I came up with in the end. Now those little gold embellishments are made from a Crelando set that I bought in my local Lidl store for about €4, about $5. And I make them on plastic packaging, and this is a laminated piece of paper, and they're a super embellishment. They'll last forever. The second card, I use the solid piece to colour in the trellis pattern. And sometimes I use a light hand and sometimes a heavy hand. I'm going for a completely random look. I didn't want it too geometrical or too perfect. I'm not usually good at doing this, and I was delighted with the way this turned out. It was just the look I wanted. And look at the bottle. I turned it over and used the reverse side. I just loved what the alcohol markers did when they seeped through the paper. I tried this, I tried this, and I tried this, and in the end I went for this look. I applied some gemstones to the trellis pattern, and then swapped up the pink for a blue flower. I was really pleased with it. For the Monstera card, I picked up the pieces with a piece of press and seal. Thank you, Jennifer Maguire. Adhered the label background to the card. And this is a Gina K bottle with high tack, fast tack glue in it. It's just an inexpensive alternative that I get in my local hobby store. And I snip off a piece there that would have looked as if it was growing out of the side of my plant pot. It's easy to finish up. Just adhere the bits and pieces down that hadn't adhered properly. Apply the top of my plant pot. And then I wanted to give it a little sparkle, so I used my Spectrum Noir sparkle pen. Then I applied just a few embellishments. I really thought this card didn't need much. I tried gemstones, I thought about some splatters, but no, I decided to leave it just as it was. And I'm just so pleased with that plant pot, and so glad that I decided to make it myself. So those are the cards for today. I do hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you'll come back to Una's Crafty Cards. I'd love if you would subscribe to my channel. And if you did like this video, would you please give it a thumbs up? That's really important for the success of my channel, so that I'll get more views. Thanks a million, thanks a bunch for being with me today. All the best for now. Bye.